If this is what you wanted, this is what you're going to get.
Jade Moore had a golden rule for 2 years. Never lose the game. The game with Vito Lucchese, Mafia Don, her boss, the most dangerous man she knew. The game was simple. She seduced, teased, kissed him intensely, but they never finished, because Jade always escaped. You first, Lucchese, which meant, admit you want me, admit your feelings for me first. But he never admitted it, too much pride. So she always won, until that night, because Vito invented the game and cornered her by making a BT that Jade swore she could handle and win. But Jade lost, for the first time in 2 years, and now she couldn't escape anymore, and she still had to pay publicly. This story will awaken strong emotions in you. Are you ready? Hi, my name is Lena, the owner of this channel, and today I came to thank Nicola and Jackie for their comments. And I also came to thank all the members of our channel, who are a fundamental support in the continuity of this project that I love so much. And now let me ask you a question. Can true love be born from a bet? Tell me here in the comments, and who knows, you might be the next one to appear at the beginning of the video. Chapter 1, Final Provocation and Lost Bet.
The game ends tonight.
2 years ago, it all started almost innocently. I had just been hired as a bartender at Vito's main club, a luxurious establishment that served as the perfect front for his shadier businesses. During my first week, I accidentally spilled a drink on his ridiculously expensive Italian shirt, apologized with a smile that didn't disguise that it had been absolutely intentional. Vito just looked at me with those dark, penetrating eyes that seemed to see straight through all my defenses, immediately noticed the provocation, and started watching me with an attention that made my skin tingle. The following months were filled with increasingly intense flirtations, looks that lasted too long to be casual, and tension so thick it could practically be cut with a knife. The first kiss happened 6 months later, in his office during a seemingly innocent discussion about inventory problems. But when I felt he was going to take it beyond the kiss, when I realized I was about to surrender completely and lose all the control I guarded so jealously, I stopped everything abruptly. You first, Lucchese. And then I left that office with shaky legs, leaving him alone with ragged breathing and an expression of desire mixed with controlled fury. Since that day, the game continued religiously, with a lot of passion. That night, exactly 2 years after our first kiss, I decided to provoke him in a particularly cruel way. I chose the short black dress that I knew was his absolute weakness, the one that hugged every curve of my body and showed off my legs in a way that always made his eyes darken with pure desire. Lola, my best friend and fellow bartender who loved watching our endless game, looked at me with that "you're playing with fire" expression as soon as she saw me arriving. "Girl, you're provoking again, and this time you crossed the line," she said while preparing drinks. "Short black dress? Vito is literally going to lose it when he sees you like that." I smiled with that confidence that came from 2 years of winning all our games, adjusting the dress purposefully. "Well, that's exactly the point of the provocation. Where is he?" Lola rolled her eyes, informing me he was in the office in a meeting, but that he had already seen me at least 3 times through the security cameras and was visibly tense. "I'm going to dance a little before the night gets busy," I announced with a mischievous smile. Lola shook her head with that expression of someone who knew this was a terrible idea, but didn't stop me as I headed to the dance floor with deliberately sensual steps. The dance floor was reasonably full, with electronic music pulsing through the sound system. I lost myself in the music purposefully, letting my body move seductively, completely aware that the cameras were capturing every movement and transmitting everything directly to the screens in his office. It didn't take long for a man to approach, a client I vaguely recognized, and start flirting while trying to dance with me. I normally would have politely refused, but that night I had other plans. Plans that involved provoking Vito to the absolute limit of his patience, and then winning the game one more time. So I accepted dancing with that completely uninteresting man, moving in a way I knew would make Vito completely lose his mind with jealousy. In the office, according to what Valen told me later, Vito was watching everything through the cameras with an increasingly dark and dangerous expression. Valen, who was his right-hand man and witness to all our games for the past 2 years, dared to ask if the boss was going to do something. Vito's response was just one cold word as he stood up. "Yes, I'm going to end this once and for all. The game ends today." I felt his presence before I even saw him, that dominant and dangerous energy that always announced Vito Lucchese's arrival, and made people automatically clear the way. I kept dancing as if I hadn't noticed anything, but every nerve in my body was hyper-aware of him approaching. When he finally arrived, he simply grabbed my arm firmly but carefully, pulling me away from the man without even looking at the poor guy who wisely backed away without questioning. "Hi, Lucchese," I greeted with fake casualness and a provocative smile. "Are you jealous by any chance?" His voice when he responded was low and dangerous, loaded with something different from what I was used to. "Office. Now, Jade." I crossed my arms over my chest, pretending a courage I wasn't completely feeling, and what if I don't want to? Vito moved even closer, invading my personal space in a way that made my breathing fail, and whispered very close to my ear, "Then I'll carry you from here to there in front of everyone. The choice is yours." This was new, because Vito had never been so direct before. I felt a shiver run through my body as I agreed to go, more curious than scared. The office was exactly as it always was, with soft lights and the smell of expensive whiskey and wood. Vito locked the door behind us with a definitive click, and then turned with an expression that was part frustration, part desire, and part absolute determination. "Enough. This game, this provocation. 2 full years, Jade. 2 years of you provoking me, kissing me, driving me crazy, and always escaping with that 'you first, Lucchese.'" I stood firm, even feeling my heart race dangerously. "So what? You never truly admitted anything, never said what you really feel. Why should I give in first?" Vito approached with predatory steps that reminded me he was fundamentally dangerous. "Because you want it as much as I do, but you're afraid of losing that precious control. So you play, set rules that favor you, and always win because the cards are marked in your favor." My heart raced because he was absolutely right, but I wasn't going to admit it so easily. "So what?" Vito moved even closer. So close I could feel the heat from his body. "And today the game changes. Bet. Here. Now. I bet I can make you admit you want me, that you're mine, without you first, without escape." I laughed with the confidence that came from never having lost. "You've never won a bet against me in 2 years. Why would now be different? Because this time the rules are mine," he responded with a dangerous smile. "If I win, you admit in front of everyone downstairs publicly that you're mine. No running, no game." My stomach tied in a knot because this was much more serious. "And if I win?" Vito got serious in a way that scared me. I stopped. Completely. No more provocations, no more kisses, no more us. You win. Forever. The seriousness in his voice made me pause. "You're saying that if I win, you stop everything?" When he confirmed, I felt something like panic spreading through my chest, because that meant this was the final bet. "But if I win, you're mine. No more games. Do you accept?" My confidence returned because I always won. "I accept." "What's the bet?" Vito smiled in that dangerous way. "Simple. You last 5 minutes without asking me to continue. I kiss you, touch you, but don't finish. You have to endure without giving in, without begging. If you can, you win." I laughed because that seemed ridiculously easy. "That's easy. I always endure." But his expression got even more dangerous. "Before you always stopped. This time I stop. Before you want to, and you'll have to ask, or wait 5 minutes. Ready?" Still too confident. I confirmed I was always ready, and that he was going to lose again. "We'll see." And then we kissed. But suddenly Vito stopped, pulling away. "What's wrong?" I was confused and breathless, still processing the sudden absence of his body. "Why did you stop?" He responded with fake concern. "Because the bet is still on. 1 minute has passed. 4 left. Can you handle it?" It was only at that moment that I realized exactly the trap he had set, and into which I had fallen. I confirmed stubbornly that yes, I could handle it. Vito came back to kiss me, and then he stopped again, pulling away with that irritating calm, while I practically screamed his name in frustration. Something wrong?" he asked with fake innocence, completely distant and calm. My breathing was failing as I processed that he was stopping on purpose. "You're stopping on purpose," Vito confirmed with a mischievous smile. "Yes, because you always stopped when you wanted. Now the control is mine. And Jade, you're going to ask. Or wait 3 more minutes. The choice is yours." I felt panic setting in when I realized I was really going to lose. "This isn't fair," Vito responded with brutal truth. "The game was never fair. You always had all the control, always stopped when you wanted. Now, the control is mine. 2 minutes have passed. 3 left. I fought internally between pride and desire that consumed every inch of my body. "I'm not going to ask." Vito approached again in that predatory way, kissing and touching me with intense pressure. "Are you sure?" he whispered in my ear. "Because I can stop again, and you stay like this, frustrated, wanting, for 3 minutes. Or you ask, and I give you everything. Now, no waiting." And it was at that moment that I broke completely. That desire won over pride. I realized what I had done. Shit, I lost. Vito pulled away, still breathless but controlled, and confirmed, "Yes, you lost. First time. And now, you pay. Downstairs, in front of everyone as agreed." Dread settled in my chest. Vito, I can't. He was firm but gentle. You can, and you will. You gave your word. A bet is a bet. And Jade, I'm not forcing you, but if you break your word, the game ends forever. Because if you don't honor the bet, there's no game. I felt tears of anger and frustration. You played dirty, Vito corrected calmly. I played smart, finally. So, do you honor the bet or do I stop? The pause was long and painful. Finally, I admitted I would honor it, but I established my condition. If I'm yours publicly, then you're also mine. No more games. For neither of us. Vito immediately agreed with visible relief. No more games, I promise. He took my hand. Come, let's finish this. The club was full and loud when we went downstairs. Vito stopped the music with a gesture to the DJ who obeyed, confused. The entire club stopped, and all the hundreds of people turned around. I stood next to Vito completely red while he got everyone's attention. Attention. Bet. Jade and I made a bet. She lost. First time in 2 years. And now, she pays. Publicly. As agreed. Jade? I swallowed my pride, took a deep breath and looked directly into his eyes. I lost. And I admit it. I'm yours. Officially. I paused to breathe. But Vito? You're also mine. So it's over. Vito looked relieved. It's over. He turned to everyone. Jade Moore is mine and I'm hers. And if anyone disagrees, speak now. Absolute silence. Vito asked quietly just for me to hear. Thank you. For honoring the bet. For giving in. Finally. I whispered back. Thank you for winning. Finally. I was tired of running, but I couldn't stop on my own. Vito kissed me right there in front of everyone. Deep and possessive, but also loving. And the entire club exploded in applause. Lola yelled to Valen that she had won her bet, demanding the 50. Valen laughed and agreed, then surprised everyone. And you? Are you free? After? Lola seemed excited. Maybe. When he suggested dinner, she accepted with a wide smile that made it clear this was more than co-workers. Vito pulled me close, possessively but protectively while the club returned to normal. I looked up and found his eyes watching me with an intensity that made my stomach flip. I realized this was real now, that there was no turning back, that I had finally lost the game, but maybe won something much better in the process. Chapter 2. First time without games.
No more games.
Vito's penthouse was exactly as I imagined it would be, all masculine elegance and power contained in every carefully chosen detail. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city illuminated below. The furniture was dark and expensive, and the silence surrounding us now seemed deafening after the chaotic noise of the club. I was standing in the middle of the huge living room, suddenly extremely aware that we were completely alone for the first time since that public declaration that still made my face heat with embarrassment and something deeper. Vito locked the door behind us, and then just stood there watching me with that intensity that always made my stomach flip uncontrollably. For the first time in 2 full years, there was no game between us, no calculated provocation or escape strategy already planned in my head. It was just the two of us, real and vulnerable in a way that scared me deeply. And now? I asked with my voice coming out more nervous than I'd like to admit. Crossing my arms over my chest in a defensive gesture that was pure habit, Vito approached slowly, as if dealing with a scared animal that could run away at any moment if he made movements too sudden. Now we stopped pretending completely, he responded with that deep voice that always sent shivers down my entire spine. Jade, I want you. For 2 whole years. Truly. Not just physically, although that's also overwhelmingly true, but I want you in every possible way. No game, no calculated provocation. Just you. Real and completely mine. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could clearly hear the desperate sound, and I felt my defenses starting to crumble in a way that would normally make me run away as fast as possible. But there was nowhere left to run now, not after that lost bet and that public declaration that made everything irrevocably real. I want you too, I finally admitted out loud, letting the words come out without the protective shield of irony or provocation. I always truly wanted you, but I was afraid, very afraid of surrendering completely and losing all control over the situation and over my own feelings. Vito stopped right in front of me, so close I could feel the heat radiating from his solid body and see the small golden flecks in his dark eyes that I normally didn't notice. And now? He asked with a surprising gentleness that completely contrasted with the possessive intensity that normally characterized all our interactions. Are you still afraid of me? Of us? Of what this means? I thought carefully before responding, because this conversation seemed too important for comfortable lies or half-truths that would protect my wounded pride. Yes, I'm still afraid because this is scary and unknown in a way I've never experienced before. I confessed with brutal honesty that left me completely vulnerable in front of him. But I also feel relief, a deep and liberating relief. I got tired of constantly running, tired of playing games that didn't lead anywhere real. So yes, I'm still afraid, but I'm also ready to finally stop running. Vito smiled in that rare and genuine way that I had only seen a few times over these 2 whole years, and the smile completely transformed his face. "So no more you first, Lucchese?" he asked with a touch of humor that relieved some of the heavy tension filling the space between our bodies. I laughed in a slightly shaky way and shook my head negatively, feeling something in my chest finally let go. No more you first as a shield and weapon. Now we do everything together, at the same pace, without one of us always controlling the whole situation. Is that okay with you? Vito responded by moving even closer and placing his hands on my waist gently but firmly, pulling me against his body. "It's perfect like this. More than perfect," he murmured against my lips before kissing me in a completely different way from all the previous kisses we exchanged over these years. This kiss was slow and deep, without the desperate urgency or battle of wills that always characterized our physical encounters. It was exploratory and tender, him discovering every inch of my mouth, as if we had all the time in the world ahead of us, as if there was no need to rush, because I wasn't going to disappear halfway through this time. My hands went up his broad shoulders and buried themselves in his dark hair, pulling him closer even though we were already completely pressed together, making my stomach clench with pure desire. "I want to do this right this time. Without rushing, without games, just the 2 of us finally." I just nodded because words seemed to have completely fled my head, and then Vito picked me up in his arms in a surprisingly romantic way that made me laugh nervously as I clung to his neck to keep my balance. I held his face between my hands and pulled him into another deep kiss before responding with all the certainty I felt burning in my chest. "I'm not going to run this time. I'm not going to change my mind. I want you, Vito Lucchese, completely and without reservations." And then we lost ourselves in each other in a way that was both familiar and completely new. Then, everything was complete. Morning came with golden light entering through the huge windows and warming my face gently. I woke up slowly, disoriented for a few seconds, before realizing where I was and what had happened the night before. I tried to move carefully not to wake him, but his arms just tightened around me, as if even sleeping he didn't want to let me escape. "Good morning," the sleep-rough voice murmured against my ear, sending pleasurable shivers across my entire skin. I turned in his embrace so I could face him properly, and found those dark eyes already open and watching me with a soft expression I had never seen before on his normally controlled face. "Good morning to you too," I responded, feeling my face heat ridiculously considering everything that had happened between us throughout the entire night. "This is strange in a good way. We didn't run, didn't play, just finally got real." Vito smiled and kissed my forehead in a surprisingly tender way, before agreeing that yes, it was strange, but absolutely perfect at the same time. "Breakfast?" he offered, starting to get up. "I need to feed my official girlfriend after such an intense night." I laughed at the term official girlfriend because it sounded so normal and domestic coming from a dangerous mafia don. "You actually cook?" I asked with genuine surprise, because that didn't match the image I had of him at all. Vito made an adorable face that made me want to kiss him immediately. "Scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing sophisticated or impressive, but at least edible. Does that work?" I nodded enthusiastically because I was starving after all the calories burned during the night. Vito stopped what he was doing and just looked at me. "You wearing my shirt is definitely my new favorite sight in the entire world," he declared with that rough voice that promised delicious things. I rolled my eyes trying to hide how those words affected me and pushed him toward the kitchen before we ended up not leaving that room for the rest of the day. The kitchen was modern and clearly little used, but Vito moved with surprising efficiency while preparing a simple but tasty breakfast. I sat on the counter watching his every movement and trying to process how my life had completely changed in less than 24 hours. "So this is official now?" I asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "We're actually together, as a couple, before the whole world?" Vito stopped stirring the eggs and turned to face me with complete seriousness. "Very official after that public declaration at the club yesterday. Everyone knows now that you're mine and I'm yours. No more games, no more provocations that don't lead anywhere, just the 2 of us building something real together." He paused and then asked with rare vulnerability, "Is that a problem for you? Do you regret having lost the bet and being forced to admit everything publicly?" I slid off the counter and walked over to him, placing my hands on his chest and feeling his heart beating hard under my palms. "Zero regrets," I declared with all the honesty I felt. "Losing to you was the best thing that could have happened because it freed me from a prison I built myself. I was trapped in that game, addicted to the control and power of always winning, but also completely unhappy because it was never going anywhere real." Vito pulled me me against him and kissed me deeply, and I could feel his relief through the kiss. "I love you," he murmured against my lips when we finally separated, and my heart jumped in my chest at those 3 words I never thought I'd hear from him. I know it's too early to say this, that we've barely really started, but it's the truth. I've loved you for too long to hide it anymore. I felt tears burning in my eyes as I smiled against his mouth and whispered back the same words that had been burning in my chest for so long without permission to be said. "I love you too, Vito Lucchese, and you're right, no more games now. Just the 2 of us, real and vulnerable and completely in love." And when he kissed me again, with all that possessive but also loving intensity, I knew with absolute certainty that losing that bet had been the best defeat of my entire life. This one's for those who believe that bad things can bring good. Chapter 3, Embarrassing Scene and Inside Joke.
Did you lock it?
Yes, I did.
A week had passed since that night that absolutely changed everything between Vito and me, and I was still getting used to this new dynamic we had built together. There were no more calculated games or strategic provocations, just a real and raw intensity that sometimes scared me with its overwhelming depth. We were an official couple now, something the entire club knew after that mortifying public declaration, and I discovered I liked this much more than I ever imagined would be possible. Vito was surprisingly attentive when he wasn't playing games or maintaining that facade of absolute control he used with everyone else. He took me to dinner at expensive restaurants I could never afford on my own, sent me flowers at the bar during my shift just to see me blush with embarrassment when Lola made provocative comments, and pulled me into stolen kisses whenever he passed near me at the club. It was intense and possessive, and sometimes suffocating in a good way, and I was secretly loving every second of all that attention directed exclusively at me. That specific afternoon, I had gone up to his office during my break because Vito had texted asking me to come up there as soon as I had some free time. The office was quiet when I entered, with only the low sound of classical music playing through the sound system built into the walls. Vito was sitting behind the huge mahogany desk, focused on some papers that looked important, but he looked up immediately when he heard me enter, and the smile that lit up his face made my stomach do those familiar flips. "You asked me to come up?" I asked, closing the door behind me and walking to his desk with slow, deliberate steps. Vito leaned back in the expensive leather chair and watched me with that predatory intensity that always made my skin tingle with anticipation. I did. I was missing my girlfriend and needed to see her immediately before I went completely crazy here alone. I laughed at that dramatic declaration and walked around the desk until I was beside him. "We saw each other 3 hours ago when you stopped by the bar to steal a kiss. 3 hours is too long when it comes to you," he responded, pulling me closer. I rolled my eyes with amusement, but snuggled against his solid chest, breathing in that smell of expensive cologne mixed with something purely masculine that was only his. "You've been impossible lately, you know that. Clingy in a way I never imagined the great Vito Lucchese could be." Vito bit my neck lightly in retaliation for the provocation, drawing an involuntary sigh from my lips. "You complain, but you love every second of it. Don't lie to me." Before I could formulate any intelligent response, he kissed me with that intensity that always left me incapable of rational thought. My hands automatically went up to his dark hair, pulling him closer as I responded to the kiss with equal intensity. What started as a simple kiss quickly escalated. Vito lifted me with impressive ease, placing me on the edge of the desk. He moved so close that our worlds seemed to become one, eliminating any space between us. At that moment, the office disappeared. There was only the warmth of his presence and the urgency of his gaze fixed on mine. "Vito, someone could walk in here any moment. Door's locked. I think I locked it earlier." Those words should have sounded like a huge alarm in my head, but I was too busy trying not to fall apart completely under his hands and mouth to properly process the lack of certainty in that statement. "You think?" I managed to ask between broken sighs. "Probably locked it. I do that automatically always." And it was exactly at that specific moment that the office door opened abruptly and violently. Valen walked in talking loudly about some urgent problem that needed immediate attention, with Lola right behind him carrying a tray with drinks, and the two stopped completely frozen when they processed the scene unfolding right in front of them. "Oh my God!" Valen practically screamed, covering his eyes with his hands dramatically, but not before clearly seeing more than any of us would have liked. Lola let out a high-pitched scream that was probably heard in the entire club downstairs. "My eyes! My poor innocent eyes!" I jumped off Vito's lap so fast I almost fell in the process, completely red with absolute embarrassment, while desperately trying to button my blouse with trembling fingers. "Don't you know how to knock on the door before entering?" Vito looked equally mortified, although he tried to maintain that facade of control that normally characterized all his interactions. "Valen, knock on the door always. That's the basic rule of etiquette." Valen had turned completely around, still with his hands dramatically covering his eyes. even though he wasn't looking directly at us anymore. "Sorry, I thought the door would be locked like it always is." Lola had also turned her back, although I could see her shoulders shaking from what was clearly contained laughter. "We'll come back later. Much later. Like in about 20 minutes or maybe a whole hour." The two practically ran out of the office, slamming the door behind them with unnecessary force, and the embarrassing silence that followed was absolutely deafening. I finished buttoning my blouse with my hands still trembling slightly, unable to look Vito directly in the eyes out of pure embarrassment. "That was absolutely mortifying," I managed to say finally, when the silence became too heavy to bear. Vito ran his hands through his messy hair in a rare gesture of visible nervousness. "Yes, it was definitely embarrassing. Very embarrassing, actually." I turned to face him finally, and saw he was equally red, which was so rare it almost made me forget the embarrassment for a second. They saw everything, absolutely everything that was happening here. Vito made a face that in any other situation I would find adorable. Not everything exactly, but yes, they saw enough to be extremely embarrassing for everyone involved. And then, completely unexpectedly, I started to laugh. It started as a small, nervous laugh, but quickly grew until I was practically doubled over laughing at the absurd situation. Vito looked at me as if I had gone completely crazy for a second, but then he also started laughing, and soon we were both laughing like idiots at our own lack of care. "We're never going to live this down," I managed to say between laughs, wiping tears from my eyes. "They saw us in a completely compromising position." Vito agreed, still laughing. "Never. This is going to become an inside joke for the rest of our lives. Without a doubt." I shook my head with amusement, but I admit it was funny after the initial shock passed. The expression of absolute horror on Valen's face is going to make me laugh for weeks. Vito pulled me in for another kiss, this one much chaster and more appropriate than the previous ones. "You first, Lucchese. Next time you check if the door is actually locked before starting anything." He laughed at that use of my signature phrase in a completely different context. "Now you ask me to lock the door? After we've already been caught?" "I learned my lesson the worst way possible," I responded, still laughing at the whole situation. Later that night, when my shift at the bar had finally ended, I discovered exactly how fast that story had spread through the entire club. Valen was at the bar surrounded by a group of employees and some regular clients, clearly retelling the story with exaggerated dramatic details, if I judged by everyone's exaggerated expressions of amusement. And then, we just walked in without knocking because we thought the door would be locked like it always is, Valen was saying with dramatic hand gestures. "And they were really busy on top of that expensive mahogany desk." Everyone exploded in loud laughter, and I felt my face heat up again with renewed embarrassment. "Valen, can you stop retelling this story to literally everyone who works here?" Lola appeared beside me with a mischievous smile that promised endless teasing. "Girl, at least next time remember to lock the door properly, or put a warning on the doorknob saying you're busy." Vito appeared behind me at that moment, putting his arm around my shoulders protectively, but clearly also amused by the whole situation. "Okay, enough. You two have had your fun at our expense. Now can you kindly forget that happened?" Valen smiled in a way that made it absolutely clear he would never forget that. "Never forget, boss. Never. This is going to become legend at the club. The time we caught you and Jade in a compromising situation because you guys forgot to lock the door." And that's how the inside joke that would haunt us for the next months was born. Whenever someone was going to enter Vito's office after that day, they knocked on the door exaggeratedly loudly and shouted on purpose, "I'm coming in. Is the door locked in there, or do I need to wait?" before even putting their hand on the doorknob. Vito pretended to be annoyed, but I knew he secretly found it funny, especially when I died of embarrassment every time someone made the joke. Lola never missed an opportunity to tease me about it either. "Girl, did you check if the door is locked this time?" she asked every time I went up to his office, with that mischievous smile that made me want to throw something at her. But I had to admit that, despite the absolutely mortifying initial embarrassment, that story had become something special among all of us. It was a shared memory that united us in a strange way, an inside joke that only our specific group completely understood. And every time Vito locked the office door in an exaggeratedly careful way now, checking 2 and sometimes even 3 times if it was really secure, I couldn't help but laugh at the memory of that fateful day. A few weeks after the incident, someone, and I had a strong suspicion it had been Valen, put a small sign on the office door that said, "Knock before entering. Seriously this time. Management." Vito threatened to remove the sign several times, but it mysteriously kept reappearing every time he tried to remove it, so eventually he just gave up and left it there as a permanent reminder of our lack of care, and honestly, I didn't mind the inside joke it had become one bit. because it meant we had history together, shared memories that were only ours, embarrassing but also funny moments that united us in ways that went beyond the simple romantic relationship. We were a strange and dysfunctional family now, all of us, and I wouldn't trade that for anything in the entire world. Chapter 4. Isabella shows up and plants a lie.
I choose you.
A week after the embarrassing incident in the office, life had returned to what was becoming our new normal. I worked my shifts at the bar. Vito took care of his business with that cold efficiency that always characterized his professional side, and in our free time, we lost ourselves in each other in ways that still made me dizzy just remembering. Lola never missed an opportunity to make jokes about locked doors. Valen had taken on the role of protective older brother who kept an eye on both of us with obvious amusement, and the club continued functioning perfectly under Vito's careful management. It was a relatively quiet Thursday night when she first showed up. I was behind the bar preparing a perfect martini for a regular customer when I felt the shift in the room's energy, that strange feeling that something important was about to happen. I looked up and saw an absolutely stunning woman entering the club with confident steps that made all heads automatically turn in her direction. She was tall and elegant, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my 3-month salary, with dark hair perfectly styled falling in soft waves down her back. But what really made me completely stop what I was doing was watching her walk directly to where Vito was talking with some of his associates near the club's VIP area. She approached him with a familiarity that made something uncomfortable tighten in my chest. And when Vito saw her, his expression changed to something between surprise and something I couldn't completely identify. The woman touched his arm in a way that was too intimate for my liking, smiling with that kind of smile that showed they had history together. "Vito, it's been so long since we last saw each other." Her voice reached the bar even with the music playing, clear and confident in a way that automatically irritated me. Lola appeared beside me carrying an empty tray, following my fixed gaze in the direction of Vito and the mysterious woman. "Who the hell is that woman practically throwing herself at your man?" she asked with her usual subtlety, which was absolutely none. I shook my head negatively without being able to take my eyes off them. "I have no idea who she is, but she's definitely too close to him for my comfort." The woman and Vito moved away a bit from the other men, talking in a way that seemed too private and personal for just casual acquaintances. I couldn't hear what they were saying because of the distance and music, but I could perfectly see both their body language. Vito seemed tense in a way I rarely saw, with rigid posture and the carefully controlled expression he used when dealing with delicate situations. The woman, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease, occasionally touching his arm in ways that made my blood boil with irrational jealousy. What I didn't know at that moment was exactly what was being said between them in that seemingly innocent conversation. Isabella Moretti, as I would discover her name later, was looking at Vito with that expression of fake concern she had perfected over the years. "So, is it true what I heard around? You're really committed now? With a bartender?" she asked with a poorly disguised disdain in her voice when mentioning my profession. Vito stared at her with that glacial coldness he reserved for people who deeply displeased him. "Yes, it's true. I'm with Jade, and she's not simply a bartender like you put it with so much disdain. She's my official girlfriend, and I expect you to treat her with the respect she deserves." Isabella laughed in that way that sounded completely fake, even to someone who didn't know her well. "Official girlfriend? Seriously? You, the great Vito Lucchese, who always swore you'd never seriously commit to anyone?" Vito crossed his arms over his chest defensively. "People change over time, Isabella. I changed, matured, found someone I truly care about. And you? What exactly do you want here? You never show up without having some specific reason in mind." Isabella pretended to be offended by the direct accusation. "I just came to see if the rumors I heard were really true, and apparently they are. You really are different. Lighter, less tense than you used to be. Does she really make you that happy?" Vito's expression softened only marginally when he responded with brutal honesty. "Very happy. Happier than I ever imagined I could be with someone. Now, if you don't have anything else important to discuss with me, I have work to do, and a girlfriend who's probably watching us from the bar with justifiable jealousy." Isabella looked in the direction Vito indicated and saw me watching the two of them with obvious attention. She smiled in that way that didn't reach her eyes at all. "I understand perfectly. I'll let you get back to your new life then. But Vito, be careful. Women like her don't really understand our world, don't understand the complexities of the kind of life you lead." And then she turned and left the club with the same confident steps she had entered with, leaving Vito alone with a frustrated expression on his handsome face. I breathed a sigh of relief when she finally left. returning my attention to the drinks I needed to prepare and trying to ignore the irrational jealousy still burning in my chest. But approximately 30 minutes later, when I was busy serving a group of loud customers, Isabella returned to the club silently. This time, she didn't go to Vito, who was busy in his office taking care of some urgent matter. Instead, she walked directly to the bar, with her eyes fixed on me in a way that made me feel like prey being hunted by an experienced predator. "Hello, you must be Jade, right? Vito's girlfriend?" she asked with a sweet smile that didn't match at all the coldness I saw in her dark eyes. I stared at her with automatic distrust, crossing my arms over my chest defensively. "Yes, that's me. And you are who exactly?" Isabella extended her hand in a way that was too polite to be genuine. "Isabella Moretti. I'm Vito's ex-girlfriend from many years ago, actually. We talked earlier. You probably saw us together." I shook her hand briefly, not liking at all where this conversation was going. "I saw you two talking, yes. What do you want with me specifically?" Her expression changed to something that seemed to be sadness, but there was something in her eyes that told me this was completely calculated and fake. "Look, I really didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but I thought you deserved to know the complete truth. Vito and I talked earlier, as you saw, and something ended up happening between us. He kissed me pretty intensely, actually, and said he still really misses what we had together. He also mentioned that you're just something temporary for him, a pleasant distraction, but nothing truly serious." I felt my heart literally stop for a full second as I processed the words she had just said with such cruel casualness. "What? You're saying Vito kissed you and said all those things about me?" Isabella nodded with that expression of fake compassion that made my stomach turn. "I'm really sorry I have to be the one to tell you this. I really am. But I thought you deserved to know the truth instead of continuing to live a lie. He still loves me deeply. Always has loved me, actually. How long have you two been together anyway? Just a few weeks? Do you really think he completely changed who he is for you in such a short time?" And then she simply turned and left the club definitively this time, leaving me alone and completely devastated with the poisonous words she had carefully planted in my head. Lola appeared beside me immediately, having watched the entire interaction from afar with obvious concern stamped on her face. "Girl, what the hell did that woman just tell you? You're white as a sheet." I felt tears burning in my eyes as I repeated the horrible words Isabella had said about Vito still loving her and me being just temporary. Lola grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me lightly, as if trying to wake me from a nightmare. "And you're actually believing her? A completely random woman you don't even know properly? She's clearly the jealous ex who wants to destroy what you two have together." I shook my head confused, all the emotions mixed in a chaotic way in my chest. "I don't know what to believe, Lola. They have history together. He had a past before me, and we've been together for such a short time, compared to how long they probably were together. What if she's telling the truth? What if I'm really just a temporary distraction for him?" Lola stared at me with that serious expression she rarely used. "Then you go to him right now and ask directly instead of believing gossip from a resentful ex. Don't believe some random woman who clearly wants to hurt you. Believe the man you say you love." I took a deep breath, trying to gather courage, and then took off my apron, asking Lola to cover my place at the bar for a few minutes. I went up to his office with determined steps, knocking on the door insistently, even knowing he was probably busy with important work. His voice called for me to come in, and when I opened the door, I found Vito sitting behind the desk with papers scattered everywhere. "Isabella," I said abruptly without any preamble or greeting, "who exactly is she to you?" Vito looked up from the papers immediately, his expression becoming cautious when he noticed the tone of my voice. "She's an ex-girlfriend from many years ago. From before you worked here. Why are you asking this specifically?" I felt tears threatening to fall as I continued. "She told me you two talked earlier, that you were alone together, and that you kissed her intensely, said you still love her deeply, and that I'm just something temporary." Vito's reaction was immediate and explosive. He got up from the chair so fast it almost fell backward, with an expression of shock mixed with pure fury stamped on his face. "She said what exactly? Jade, that's a complete and absolute lie. I didn't kiss that manipulative woman. We talked for maybe 5 minutes maximum, and I made it absolutely clear that I'm happy with you and only you." I desperately wanted to believe, but fear still gnawed at my insides painfully. But why would she lie about something like that? What would be her motivation to make up such a specific story? Vito walked around the desk and held my face between his large hands with a gentleness that completely contrasted with the fury still shining in his dark eyes. "Because she's manipulative and always has been since I met her, since the times we dated. And now she's clearly trying to separate us because she can't stand seeing me happy with someone other than her. Jade, look at me and listen carefully. Do you believe her? A complete stranger with obviously dubious motivations? Or do you believe me, the man you say you love?" The internal struggle was visible on my face as I processed everything. I want to believe you desperately, want to trust that what we have is real, but I'm afraid, so afraid of being an idiot and naive. What if she's right, and you really still love her? Vito pulled me against his chest protectively, stroking my hair while speaking with absolute conviction. There's no what if here. I love you completely, only you. Isabella is dead and buried past. You're my present, and my entire future. Please, Jade, trust me. Trust what we've built together. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, making the decision to believe him instead of the poisonous words of a resentful stranger. Okay, I trust you and what you're saying. But Vito, if I find out at any point that she was right about anything, if you lie to me about this, I'm not staying. I'll leave immediately without looking back. Understood? Vito kissed my forehead with a tenderness that made my heart squeeze. Understood. But you won't find out anything because she's blatantly lying. I love you, Jade Moore. Only you. Always. Only you. And when I whispered back that I loved him too, I felt the tension finally beginning to dissipate from my body, replaced by renewed trust in the man who held my heart in his hands. Was Isabella really right? Or is Vito telling the truth? At Chapter 5, Vito confronts Isabella and proves the truth.
I trust you.
Vito didn't waste any time after our conversation in the office. I had gone back to the bar, trying to focus on work, while processing everything that had happened, but my head was far from the drinks I was preparing mechanically. Lola kept watching me with obvious concern, but respected my silence, and didn't ask invasive questions about what had been discussed up there. What I didn't know was that Vito had left the club immediately after I went downstairs, with a cold and dangerous determination stamped on his face that made Valen ask if he needed company. No, I'll handle this myself, Vito had responded curtly while grabbing his car keys. I need to have a very serious conversation with Isabella about the lies she spread to Jade. Valen just nodded with understanding, knowing better than to try to interfere when the boss was in that specific state of controlled fury that promised unpleasant consequences for whoever was in his path. Vito drove to the hotel where Isabella was staying, a luxury establishment in the city center that he knew she always preferred when visiting. He had the right contacts to find out exactly which room she was in, and went up there with determined steps that echoed threateningly through the silent hallway. The room door was ajar, as if she were waiting for someone, and Vito simply pushed the door and entered without any ceremony. Isabella, his voice echoed through the luxurious room with a coldness that would have made any sensible person immediately back away. Isabella turned from the window where she was watching the city below, and a confident and seductive smile spread across her beautiful face when she saw who had entered. Vito, you came to see me. I knew you would eventually, but she couldn't finish the sentence because his voice cut through the air like a sharp blade, icy in a way that made her smile waver and slowly begin to disappear. You blatantly lied to Jade, said I kissed you intensely, that I still love you deeply, that she's just something temporary. All lies. Every word that came out of your mouth was pure, calculated lies. His expression was absolutely terrifying, in its contained coldness, with dark eyes shining with a fury he rarely let show so openly. Isabella tried to maintain composure and feigned innocence with a talent that had clearly been perfected over many years of manipulation. I only told the truth about what happened between us earlier, about the conversation we had, and the feelings that still exist. Lie! Vito practically roared the word, making Isabella instinctively take a step back. And I'm going to prove to Jade exactly how much you're lying, here and right now. He pulled his phone from his pocket with abrupt movements and dialed her number, putting it on speakerphone before the first ring even completed. My voice answered confused after 3 rings, clearly not understanding why he was calling when we had talked less than an hour ago. Vito, did something happen? Are you okay? I asked, with obvious concern tinging every word. His voice softened only marginally when he responded to me. I'm fine, love, but I need you to put it on speakerphone on your end too. There's something very important you need to hear directly from the source. I obeyed, confused, and Vito then turned completely to Isabella with an absolutely implacable expression. Isabella, repeat to Jade exactly what happened between us during that conversation earlier, in front of her now, without lies this time. Now. Isabella was visibly panicking now, eyes wide as she desperately searched for a way out of the situation that had completely turned against her. We talked about the past we had together, and her voice was trembling in a way it had never trembled before, all previous confidence rapidly evaporating. And what else exactly? Vito pressed with that cold and implacable voice that wouldn't accept anything less than the complete truth. What happened besides the innocent conversation? Did I kiss you like you told Jade? The silence that followed was long and heavy, filled only by Isabella's accelerated breathing, as she visibly struggled between continuing to lie or finally admitting the truth. And nothing else happened besides the conversation, she finally admitted with a low and defeated voice. You made it clear you're happy with her, that I'm dead and buried past to you. And did I kiss you at any point during that conversation? Vito insisted on the specific question he needed her to answer directly to end this situation once and for all. Isabella closed her eyes as if feeling physical pain having to admit the truth. No, you didn't kiss me at any point. So you deliberately lied to Jade about all of this? Made up a completely false story just to try to separate us? His voice was loaded with a righteous anger that made even me shudder just hearing it over the phone. Why would you do something so cruel and manipulative? Tears started streaming down Isabella's face, but they weren't tears of genuine regret, but rather pure frustration at being caught and exposed. Because I still truly love you. I've always loved you even after all these years apart. And seeing you so happy and in love with someone else, with just any woman who isn't even part of our world, hurts in a way you can't imagine. So yes, I tried to separate you two by planting doubts in her head, tried to make her question whether you really love her or if it's just something temporary. Vito shook his head with a mixture of pity and disgust clearly stamped on his face, manipulating and lying in a cruel and calculated way. Jade, did you hear everything she just admitted? My voice came through the speakerphone, sounding relieved but also hurt by this whole situation. I heard every word. She lied about absolutely everything, made up an entire story just to hurt me. Vito turned completely to Isabella with an absolutely final expression that left no room for negotiation or discussion. You leave the city today, pack your things, and disappear completely. And never talk to Jade again or approach her in any way, not even casually on the street. Or I guarantee you one thing with absolute certainty. You won't get work anywhere I have influence. And I have a lot of influence spread throughout this entire city and beyond. Do you understand me perfectly? Isabella nodded, defeated, tears still streaming down her face as she finally understood she had lost completely and definitively. She grabbed her expensive purse with trembling hands and left the room without looking back, knowing she had destroyed any chance she might have had of winning back the man she still loved in a sick way. When the door closed behind her, Vito finally turned his complete attention to the phone that was still on speaker. Jade, I'm sorry about all of this, for having a completely crazy and manipulative ex, for you having to go through this whole situation, for everything. My voice was thick with emotion when I responded, but it was good emotion this time. It's not your fault at all. You can't control what crazy people do, but thank you for proving the truth to me, for fighting for us and what we have together, instead of simply letting her lies destroy everything. Vito smiled for the first time since he had entered that hotel room. I'll always fight for us, for you, for what we built together. Nothing and no one will destroy this if I can help it. I love you more than I can express in words. I love you too, I whispered back, feeling my heart finally calm down after that whole emotional roller coaster. Now come back to the club so I can kiss you properly, and thank you for being exactly the incredible man you are. Vito laughed softly in that way that always made my stomach flip. I'm already on my way back, love. See you in a few minutes. And when the call ended, I finally managed to breathe with relief, knowing the truth had been exposed, and that Vito had proven without a shadow of doubt that I could completely trust him and the love we shared. Chapter 6. Theo shows up.
I already chose.
A week after the drama with Isabella, things had finally returned to the peaceful normal I was learning to appreciate more and more. Vito was more attentive than ever, as if he wanted to make up for all the stress that situation had caused, and I found myself falling even deeper into that intense love that grew between us with each passing day. The club was particularly busy that Friday night, with the dance floor packed with bodies moving to the rhythm of electronic music, pulsing through the expensive speakers. I was behind the bar preparing a sequence of colorful shots for a group of women celebrating a birthday when I felt that strange sensation of being watched with specific attention. I looked up and found a face I hadn't seen in 3 full years, a face that had been important to me in a completely different life from the one I lived now. Theo Kane was standing on the other side of the bar, watching me with that expression of admiration, mixed with something deeper that I knew all too well from the times when we dated. Jade, you look absolutely beautiful as you've always been, he said, approaching the bar with that smile that used to make my heart race years ago, but now caused absolutely no effect beyond a slight nostalgia for the past. The surprise left me temporarily speechless as I processed his completely unexpected presence there at the club. Theo, what are you doing here of all people in the world? Theo leaned on the bar counter casually, his blue eyes traveling over my face as if trying to memorize every detail. I actually came specifically to see you. I heard through mutual friends that you work here now, and I needed to find you in person. I wanted to talk about us, about what we had together. I felt my stomach tighten uncomfortably, because I knew exactly where that conversation was trying to go, and I didn't like the direction at all. There's no us to talk about, Theo. We broke up 3 full years ago and went our completely separate ways since then. His expression got serious in a way I rarely saw when we were together. I know that perfectly well, and it was the biggest mistake I ever made in my entire life, breaking up with you, letting you go without fighting for what we had. I still love you deeply, Jade. I've always loved you even after all this time apart, and I want to try again. I want a second chance to do things right this time. I shook my head negatively with firmness, crossing my arms over my chest defensively. Theo, I'm with someone now, seriously committed to someone else. Very committed, actually. The disappointment that passed over his face was genuine and painful to see. Who are you with? Another bartender? One of the employees here? And it was exactly at that moment that Vito appeared coming from the direction of the office, having clearly heard at least part of the conversation through the security cameras that constantly monitored every inch of the club. He walked to the bar with that dominant presence that made people automatically clear the way, and put his arm around my waist possessively, but also protectively, before responding to Theo's question with a cold and controlled voice. With me, Vito Lucchesi, owner of this club and Jade's official boyfriend. The way he said it made it absolutely clear he wasn't open for discussion or questioning in any way. Theo studied Vito with obvious attention, clearly intimidated by his imposing presence, but trying to hide that fact behind a mask of forced indifference. I understand the situation perfectly then. And do you truly love her? Genuinely? Or is she just another passing girlfriend? A pleasant pastime until something more interesting comes along. Vito's voice became dangerously low, in a way I recognized as the prelude to something very unpleasant, for whoever was on the other side of that contained fury. Ask that again. I seriously dare you to repeat that insulting insinuation a second time. I quickly interfered before this escalated into something physically violent that would end very badly for Theo. Theo, please, leave now. I chose Vito, chose to be with him. I truly love him, and your completely buried past. Respect that and the decision I made consciously. But Theo clearly wasn't ready to give up so easily. But we were good together in the past. We had something real and solid. And him? He gestured toward Vito with obvious disdain. He's dangerous in ways you don't even fully imagine. Involved with the mafia and shady business. You deserve someone much better than that. Someone safe and stable. I felt anger rising hot and strong in my chest at that arrogant presumption that he knew what was best for me. I choose who I deserve, Theo, not you or anyone else. And I chose Vito consciously knowing exactly who he is and what he does. Now get out of here before this situation gets much worse for you specifically. Theo stared at me for a long, tense moment, clearly struggling internally between insisting more or accepting final defeat. Finally, frustration won, and he shook his head with bitter disappointment stamped on his face. You're going to regret this choice eventually. You'll realize you made a terrible mistake. And then he turned and left the club with stiff steps of contained anger, disappearing through the front door and completely exiting our lives. The silence that followed his exit was heavy and loaded with residual tension. Vito turned to me with obvious concern shining in his dark eyes. Are you really okay? Seeing your ex show up like that out of nowhere must have been shocking at the very least. I nodded, breathing deeply to calm myself, leaning against his solid chest and absorbing the comfort his presence always offered me. I'm fine, just surprised by his audacity to show up here after so long and think I would simply run back into his arms. But Vito, I chose you without any hesitation. I'll always choose you. Vito kissed the top of my head with tenderness that completely contrasted with the fury he had shown moments ago. And I'll always choose you too, without a doubt. You never doubted us? When he offered that safe option he mentioned, I lifted my face to look him directly in the eyes, wanting him to see the absolute truth clearly stamped on my expression. I didn't doubt for even a single second, because safe is boring and predictable, and I don't want any of that. I want you exactly as you are, intense, protective, a little possessive sometimes, but completely mine. Vito smiled in that rare and genuine way that transformed his entire face. Completely crazy about you would be the most accurate description, actually. I laughed lightly at that declaration. Completely crazy works perfectly for me. And Vito, I have a feeling you have something planned. You get that specific expression when you're hiding something from me. His expression became slightly mysterious, in an intriguing way. Maybe I do have something. a special surprise I'm planning to show you tomorrow, but you'll have to wait until then to find out what it is exactly. My curiosity was instantly piqued, because Vito rarely mentioned surprises without having something really impressive planned. What kind of surprise are we talking about here? Can you give me at least a small hint? Vito shook his head negatively with obvious amusement dancing in his eyes. No hints this time. It's a complete surprise that you'll only discover when I take you there personally tomorrow. But I promise it's something good, something that will show how committed I am to our future together. I studied his expression, trying to decipher what it could be, but he kept that mask of mystery perfectly in place. Okay then, I'll trust you and wait patiently until tomorrow, but only because I love you too much to be annoyed with you keeping secrets. Vito pulled me into a deep kiss, right there in the middle of the packed club, not caring at all about the dozens of eyes that were probably watching the public display of affection. I love you too, more than I can adequately express in words. And tomorrow you'll understand exactly how much when you see the surprise I prepared. And when he hugged me tight against his chest, I felt that absolute security that I had made the completely right choice by choosing to stay with him instead of going back to the safe but dull past that Theo represented. It's palpable to perceive just from Jade's descriptions how much she loves Vito. Chapter 7. Theo tries again, and Vito protects.
This is over.
Wait, what?
3 days had passed since Theo's unexpected appearance at the club, and I had assumed with some naivety that he had finally gotten the message and given up trying to win me back. I was impressively wrong. The first indication that he hadn't given up at all came in the form of a huge bouquet of red roses that was delivered to the club during my afternoon shift, with a card that said only, "Thinking of you, always, Theo." Lola saw the flowers before I did, and raised an eyebrow with that expression of judgment she had perfected over years of friendship. "Girl, who's sending you expensive flowers that isn't Vito? Because you know he's going to lose it when he finds out about this." I read the card and felt my stomach tighten with irritation, mixed with apprehension about how Vito would react when he found out. It's Theo, my ex who showed up here a few days ago. Apparently he decided he doesn't accept no as an answer. Lola made a face of obvious disapproval. That's basically harassment. You sent a clear message that you're not interested and he keeps insisting anyway. Are you going to tell Vito? Before I could respond, my phone vibrated with a text message. It was from Theo, saying he wanted to see me so we could talk calmly, that he was sure I would change my mind if I just listened to him without my jealous boyfriend around. I showed the message to Lola, who shook her head with disbelief. This guy is persistent in a scary way. You need to block his number and throw those flowers in the trash before Vito sees them. But it was too late to hide the flowers, because Vito chose that exact moment to come down from the office, and his eyes found the huge bouquet instantly. His expression became dangerous in that controlled way I was learning to recognize as a sign of an imminent storm. "Whose flowers are those?" he asked with a voice too calm to be genuine. I sighed, knowing that lying would be worse. "Theo's. He had them delivered today along with messages on my phone saying he wants to talk to me alone." Vito's eyes visibly darkened. "He's harassing you even after you made it clear you're not interested. This needs to stop now." But things only got worse over the following days. More flowers arrived daily, always with cards declaring feelings I didn't reciprocate at all. The text messages became more frequent and insistent, with Theo claiming he had changed, matured, that we could have something better than what we had before. I eventually blocked his number, but apparently that wasn't enough to discourage him. The following Thursday, Theo showed up at the club again. This time he approached me directly in front of Vito, who was talking to me at the bar during my break. His audacity in showing up knowing Vito was there was shocking. "Jade, please, just give me 5 minutes to talk alone. Just 5 minutes for me to show you I've truly changed, that we can have something better than what we had before," Theo said, ignoring Vito's threatening presence beside me. Vito took a step forward, placing himself between me and Theo protectively. "She said no, 3 times already by my count. Are you deaf, or just too stupid to understand a clear rejection?" Irritation passed over Theo's face. "This is between me and her. It has nothing to do with you." I put my hand on Vito's arm, feeling the tension in his muscles, and then faced Theo firmly. "No, Theo. This has everything to do with him because I chose to be with Vito. Now get out of here. This is the last time I'm going to ask nicely. After this, Vito acts in whatever way he deems necessary, and you really don't want that." Theo stared at me as if he were seeing a stranger. "You're threatening me? With violence?" "The Jade I knew would never do something like that." Vito laughed without any humor. "The Jade you knew doesn't exist anymore. She grew up, changed, found someone who truly values her. And now I'm going to make you a very clear promise. You show up here again harassing her, I guarantee you won't work anywhere in this city anymore. I have influence. A lot of influence, actually. And I don't hesitate to use it when someone I care about is being harassed by an ex who won't accept no as an answer. The threat was said with such coldness that even I felt a shiver, and Theo clearly understood Vito wasn't bluffing at all. Anger and frustration fought on his face before defeat finally won. "You're going to regret this, Jade. You'll realize you made a huge mistake choosing him instead of me." "I won't," I responded with firm conviction. "Now leave, Theo, for good this time." Theo stared at us for a few more tense seconds, before finally turning and leaving the club with stiff steps. This time I knew it was definitive, that he had finally understood there was no chance whatsoever of reconciliation between us. When the door closed behind him, I felt relief flooding me like a wave. Vito turned me to face him, his hands holding my face gently. "Are you okay?" I know it wasn't easy having to be so harsh with him. I leaned against his chest, listening to the strong heartbeats. "I'm fine. Thank you for protecting me again, for always being on my side when I need it. Always," he promised, kissing the top of my head. "I'll always protect you from anything or anyone who tries to hurt you." He paused before asking with some hesitation, "Did you doubt us when he offered that safe and stable option he represents?" "Not even for a second." I lifted my face to look him in the eyes, wanting him to see the truth there. "Not even for half a second, because safe is boring and predictable, and I don't want any of that in my life. I want you, intense, protective, sometimes possessive, but always real. And always mine." The smile that lit up his face was genuine and relieved. "Kinda crazy about you would be more accurate. Kinda crazy works," I agreed, laughing. "And Vito, about that surprise you mentioned before, are you still going to show me tomorrow?" His expression became mysterious again. "I am. It's something important, something that will show how much I'm thinking about our future together. But you need to trust me and wait until tomorrow to find out." My curiosity was killing me, but I knew he wasn't going to give in and tell me before it was time. "Okay, I'll trust you and wait, but only because I love you too much to be annoyed." Vito kissed me right there in the middle of the club, not caring who was watching. "I love you too, more than I can say in words, and no more you first between us, right? Now it's everything together, at the same pace." "Together," I agreed, smiling against his lips. "Always together from now on." And when he hugged me tight, I knew with certainty I had made the right choice. Not just in rejecting Theo, but in accepting to lose that bet weeks ago and truly surrendering to the man who held my heart in his hands. The game had ended, but something much better had begun in its place. Something real, intense, and full of promises for the future we would build together. Chapter 8.
Yes, to everything.
The morning of the next day arrived with an anxious nervousness running through my veins from the moment I woke up in Vito's arms. He had refused to give me any hints about the surprise he had planned, only saying I should dress casually but nicely and be ready at 10 in the morning. The curiosity was killing me in an almost physical way, and Lola wasn't helping at all with constant messages asking if I already knew what it was and making crazy bets about what Vito could be planning. When Vito finally showed up at my apartment door promptly at 10, he was wearing dark jeans and a navy blue dress shirt that unfairly highlighted his eyes. The mysterious smile playing on his lips made my stomach do those familiar flips of anticipation mixed with nervousness. "Ready for the surprise?" he asked, pulling me into a quick but intense kiss. Before even saying good morning properly, I rolled my eyes with fake amusement. "Ready for hours, actually. Are you finally going to tell me what you're planning, or am I going to have to keep dying of curiosity?" Vito just smiled in that enigmatic way that drove me crazy. "You'll find out in a few minutes, but first, I need you to trust me and wear this." He pulled a soft fabric blindfold from his pocket, and my eyes widened with disbelief. "You're kidding me right now. Why the hell do I need to be blindfolded?" I protested, even though I already knew he wasn't going to give in on this. Vito laughed softly in that way that always made my heart race. "Because a surprise needs to be a real surprise. No peeking along the way, trying to guess where we're going. Do you trust me?" I sighed dramatically, but turned around to let him tie the blindfold around my eyes. "I trust you, even when you're being annoying with all this mystery. But if you take me somewhere weird, you're going to hear about it for the rest of your life." His laughter echoed in the small hallway space as he carefully guided me to the car. The ride seemed to last forever, when you can't see absolutely anything, with only the sound of city traffic and soft music playing on the radio to vaguely orient me. Vito held my hand during the entire journey, his thumb making comforting circles on my skin, while I tried to mentally guess where we were going. After what seemed like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, the car finally stopped, and Vito turned off the engine. "We're here, but don't take off the blindfold yet. Wait for me to help you get out and position you in the right place." He opened my door and guided me out of the car carefully, holding my waist firmly to make sure I didn't trip on anything. I could feel the warm sun on my face and hear the distant sounds of the city around us, but nothing that gave me concrete clues about where exactly we were. Vito positioned me facing something and then stood behind me, his hands on my shoulders as he leaned in to whisper in my ear. "Ready to see?" His voice was loaded with poorly contained emotion that rarely showed so clearly. I just nodded because words seemed to have fled from my throat from so much anxiety. Vito untied the blindfold slowly, and the fabric fell from my eyes, revealing the sight in front of me. For a few seconds, my brain simply couldn't process what I was seeing. It was a huge 3-story building with a modern facade in glass and steel, clearly recently renovated because everything shone new under the sunlight. The architecture was stunning, with clean lines and a contemporary design that breathed luxury and sophistication. "What is this?" I managed to ask, with my voice coming out weak from pure shock. Vito moved to stand beside me, his arm wrapping around my waist while he watched my reaction with obvious attention. "Our club. New, bigger, and much better than the old one. I bought the building a few months ago, renovated everything from scratch, and now it's ready to open. But there's something important I want to ask you about it." I turned to face him, not understanding where he was going with this. "What do you want to ask me?" "It's beautiful, Vito. Really incredible." His eyes shone with something intense as he held my hands between his. "I want you to be my partner, official, with a registered contract and everything. 50% for each of us. Our business built and managed together equally." My jaw literally dropped from pure shock. "You're offering me partnership in a club this size? Vito, this must have cost a fortune. Why would you do this?" His expression softened in a way that made my heart melt. "Because you deserve it. You work hard every day. You're smart, creative. You have excellent ideas about how to improve the business. And more important than all of that, I truly love you and want to build something real with you. Not just a relationship, but an entire life. Business, family, future, everything together." Tears started streaming down my face before I could even try to hold them back. "Vito, this is... I don't know what to say. It's too incredible." And it was at that exact moment that Vito did something that made my heart literally stop. He knelt right there on the sidewalk in front of the beautiful building, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket and opening it to reveal the most beautiful ring I had ever seen in my life. The center diamond sparkled under the sunlight, surrounded by smaller stones that formed a delicate and elegant design. "Jade Moore," he began, with his voice thick with emotion. "I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone. You made me play games for 2 whole years, drove me crazy with frustration and desire, and it was the best thing that ever happened in my life. You made me feel things I never felt before, made me want things I never wanted, and now I want everything with you. So will you marry me? Be my partner in this club, my wife in life, my partner in everything. Forever?" I was openly crying now, my hands covering my mouth as I processed that this was really happening. "You're proposing to me in front of our club?" Vito smiled through his own tears that shone in his eyes. "Yes, because this represents our new beginning. Our future is being built together. So, do you accept? Marry me, open this club together, build an entire life by my side?" I crouched down and pulled his face to a kiss, wet with both our tears, before responding with all the certainty in the world. "Yes, I accept everything. The partnership, the marriage, the whole life together. Yes to everything." Vito slid the ring onto my finger, with hands that trembled slightly with emotion, and then stood up, pulling me against his body in a tight hug that literally lifted my feet off the ground. I laughed through the tears, grabbing his shoulders as he spun me in the air as if I weighed nothing. When he finally put me back on the ground, I looked at the ring on my finger, and then back at the beautiful building that would be ours. "I can't believe this is really happening. It's too perfect to be real." Vito kissed my forehead with infinite tenderness. "It's real, very real, and it's going to be even better when we open this club and turn it into the best in the entire city. Together, as partners, and as a couple. No more games between us, right?" I smiled through the tears still streaming down. "No more games, just the 2 of us. Real, and building something incredible together. Forever, forever," he repeated before kissing me again. And I knew with absolute certainty that I had finally found my place in the world. It wasn't just about the beautiful club or the expensive ring on my finger. It was about the man who held my heart in his hands, the man who had changed the game and made me lose so spectacularly that winning had never seemed so meaningless. Losing to Vito Lucchese had been the best defeat of my life, and the future we would build together would be better than any victory I could have imagined alone. Chapter 9. Small Wedding and Final Joke.
No more you first.
No more you first.
3 months had passed since the unexpected proposal in front of the new club, and those months had been a chaotic mix of wedding planning, preparations for the Eclipse Lounge opening, and stolen moments of intimacy between all the chaos. We decided to have a small, intimate ceremony, only with the people who really mattered to us, instead of a huge, impersonal event full of business associates we barely knew. The chosen location was the terrace of the new club, which was still technically under construction, but already beautiful enough to serve as the perfect setting for our wedding. Vito had insisted on accelerating the renovation of that specific area, ensuring it was ready on time even if the rest of the club still needed some final adjustments. The result was stunning, with hanging lights creating a magical atmosphere and the view of the illuminated city in the background, serving as a natural backdrop. I was in what would eventually be the club's administrative office, looking at myself in the mirror, while Lola adjusted the delicate veil that fell down my back. The dress I chose was simple, but elegant, in white lace that hugged my body before falling into a flowing skirt that touched the floor. Nothing too elaborate or pompous, just something that made me feel beautiful and comfortable at the same time. "You look too beautiful, girl," Lola said, with tears shining in her eyes as she gave the final touches. "Vito is literally going to forget how to breathe when he sees you walking down for the ceremony." I laughed nervously, my hands trembling slightly as I held the bouquet of white and purple roses. I can't believe this is really happening. A few months ago I was playing stupid games with him, and now we're about to actually get married. Lola hugged me carefully so as not to wrinkle the dress. "It's happening because you two finally stopped playing and decided to be real with each other, and I couldn't be happier for you guys." She paused before adding with that mischievous smile. "And also, because Vito was smart enough to change the rules of that game and finally make you lose." The music started playing outside, signaling it was time to begin the ceremony. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the nerves dancing in my stomach, and then Lola opened the door that led to the terrace. The guests were few, only 20 people at most, but each one of them was important to us in some real way. Valen was standing beside Vito at the small, improvised altar, both wearing dark suits that made them look like they stepped out of a men's fashion magazine. But my eyes found only Vito, and stayed locked there as I slowly walked toward him. The expression on his face was pure admiration, mixed with love so intense it made my heart jump in my chest. When I finally reached his side, Vito took my hand and squeezed it gently but firmly, as if anchoring himself to me. The officiant, a justice of the peace who was an old friend of the Lucchese family, began the ceremony with traditional words about love and commitment. But when it was time for personal vows, Vito stared at me with those dark eyes that always made my stomach flip and began to speak with his voice thick with emotion. "Jade, you made me play games for 2 whole years, drove me crazy, frustrated, obsessed in ways I'd never experienced before, and it was the best thing that ever happened in my life, because it made me really feel for the first time in a long time, made me fight for something I truly wanted, made me want things I never thought were for me." He paused to take a deep breath. "I promise to love you unconditionally, always protect you, build an incredible life by your side. No more you first between us. Now it's always together, at the same pace, for the rest of our lives." Tears were already streaming down my face when it was my turn to speak. "Vito, I played games because I was very afraid to truly surrender, afraid to lose control, afraid to be vulnerable with someone. But you finally made me lose, changed the rules of the game in a way that forced me to face what I really felt, and it was liberating in ways I didn't even know I needed." I laughed through the tears. "I promise to always love you, challenge you from time to time because you like that, build something real together, and I promise to lock doors when necessary." The entire audience erupted in laughter at that last part, the inside joke about the embarrassing office incident still alive and well among all of us. Valen didn't miss the opportunity and shouted from his place beside Vito, "Is the terrace door locked this time?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Valen, it's my wedding. You can't make that joke now." But everyone was laughing, including Vito, who had that huge smile on his face that rarely appeared, but transformed him completely when it did. The officiant waited for the laughter to die down before continuing with the ceremony, finally declaring that we were officially married and that Vito could kiss the bride. And Vito didn't waste time, pulling me against him and kissing me in a deep and prolonged way that drew applause and whistles from our guests. When we finally separated, both breathless and smiling like idiots in love, I knew this was the beginning of something incredible. The reception was simple, but full of genuine joy. Lola and Valen were sitting together, officially dating for 2 months after finally admitting the mutual feelings everyone already knew existed. I watched them from afar, talking animatedly, and Lola eventually got up to come to me. "They're perfect together," she said, watching Vito talk with some guests. "You guys finally stopped playing and look where you ended up. Married, partners, truly happy. Valen appeared beside her, his arm wrapping around her waist naturally. 2 years of games were worth the wait in the end. The question now is, are we going to play for 2 years too before admitting the obvious? Lola turned to face him with that determined expression. No, I learned from them. No games between us. Just something real from the start. Valen smiled in that way that showed he was relieved with the answer. Great, because I already love you. No need to play games or pretend anything. Lola kissed him right there in front of everyone, and I smiled, knowing they had learned from our mistakes and successes. Eventually, Vito found me alone on the terrace, looking at the city below, and he approached from behind, wrapping his arms around my waist. So now we're officially married and partners in this incredible club, I said, leaning against his chest. Vito kissed my neck softly. And eventually we'll have a bigger house, maybe a family. Do you still want kids someday? I turned in his arms to face him. Yes, I do. But after the club opens and we're established. First we build the business, then we think about family. No rush. Vito agreed with a smile. Perfect. We're on the same page then. And Jade, thank you for finally losing, for surrendering and letting me win after so long. I held his face between my hands. Thank you for being smart enough to finally change the game, for forcing me to face what I really felt. And Vito, I love you. No, you first this time. I love you too. No games, just real forever, he responded before kissing me under the stars and the lights of our new club. And I knew that losing that bet months ago had been the best thing that ever happened in my entire life. Chapter 10, Club Opening and Sweet Moments.
We built this together.
We did.
8 months after the wedding, the Eclipse Lounge opening finally arrived. The club was unrecognizable from the first time Vito brought me to see the empty building. Now it was luxurious and modern, with 3 floors of pure sophistication that promised to attract the city's elite. The lights were perfect, the decoration impeccable, and the line at the door already stretched down the sidewalk even before the official opening. I was nervous in a way I hadn't felt in months, adjusting the elegant black dress for the 10th time, while Vito watched with that amused smile. You look beautiful. Relax. It's going to be perfect. Easy for you to say, I responded, taking a deep breath. You've done this before. I've never spoken in public about a business that's partially mine. Vito held my hand and squeezed it affectionately. Our business. And you're going to kill it. I'm sure of it. At 8 o'clock sharp, we opened the doors and guests began to enter. The energy was electric, with music playing and people admiring every detail of the space we had created together. When it was time for the official speech, Vito went up on the small stage we had set up and asked for silence. Welcome to Eclipse Lounge, his voice echoed through the packed space. This club is a dream come true. My dream and my wife's. My partner in everything. He looked at me with that affection that still made my heart melt. Without Jade, none of this would exist. She brought creativity, passion, and a vision that transformed my basic ideas into something truly special. Jade, want to say a few words? I went up on stage with my legs trembling, but Vito's hand on my waist gave me the necessary courage. Hi, I'm Jade, and 3 years ago I was just a bartender at Vito's old club, and we had a strange game that lasted 2 whole years, with provocations and constant escapes on my part. Laughter ran through the crowd, until he changed the rules and finally made me lose, and that defeat was the best thing that ever happened to me. I took a deep breath before continuing. The name Eclipse has everything to do with our story. For 2 years, I eclipsed my own feelings, hid what I really felt behind games and provocations. And Vito did too, in a way. We were 2 people hiding in the shadow of fear and pride. But when we finally stopped hiding, when the light finally reached what was in the shadows, we discovered something incredible. Real love, true partnership, a future built together. So Eclipse is about that. About coming out of the shadows and living in the light. Enjoy the club. It's our gift to you. The applause was loud and genuine, and Vito kissed me right there on stage before we went down together. The night was an absolute success, with the club packed and everyone having fun exactly as we had planned. Later, when things calmed down a bit, I was behind the bar serving drinks because I couldn't resist. Vito appeared beside me, shaking his head with amusement. You don't need to work today. It's our party. Our opening. I know, I responded, smiling, while preparing a perfect mojito. But I love doing this. And you? Are you going to stand there watching me or help? Vito came behind the bar with me. Okay, I'll help. But I warn you, my drinks are still questionable. Then you serve, I prepare, I suggested, laughing. We worked side by side, laughing and happy, and those simple moments were as precious as any grand romantic gesture. When a slow song started playing, Vito extended his hand. Dance with me? Always, I responded, taking his hand. We danced in the middle of the floor, pressed together and lost in each other. Do you remember the first time we danced together, over 2 years ago? You tried to kiss me and I escaped. Vito laughed softly. I remember perfectly. I was crazy with frustration. And now you can kiss me whenever you want, without me running away, I responded smiling. He kissed me right there, soft and full of promise. Are you happy? Truly? Happier than I ever imagined possible? You, the club, our life together. Everything is perfect. It's not perfect, Vito gently corrected, but it's ours. And that's better. At the end of the night, we went up to the new office to count the first day's revenue. The numbers were incredible, way beyond what we had projected. We killed it! First night, and it was already a huge success. Vito pulled me into his arms. We killed it together, and I have an important confession. What? I asked, curious. He showed the key in his hand. The door is locked this time. I learned my lesson after that embarrassment with Valen and Lola. I laughed out loud. Finally. It took a while, but you learned. Vito kissed me, but I stopped him with my hand on his chest. Wait, I have something to tell you too. His expression became worried. What? I smiled nervously. We're going to need another partner. A small one. In about 7 months or so. Vito stared at me, processing the words before understanding illuminated his face. You're pregnant? Yes. I found out last week, but I wanted to tell you today, on our special day. Surprise? Vito picked me up in his arms and spun me around, laughing with pure happiness. The best surprise. We're going to be parents, and we have the club, and everything. This is too perfect. I thought you were going to freak out, I confessed, laughing. I am freaking out, with happiness. I love you, and our baby, and Eclipse, everything. I love you too. And Vito, thank you for changing the game, for making me lose, for everything we built. Thank you for playing, for finally letting me win. And now no more games, just real life. Together, always. Epilogue. 1 year later, Eclipse Lounge was the most successful club in the city, and I was there with our daughter Zoe in my arms, a beautiful 4-month-old baby with her father's dark eyes. Vito held her carefully, speaking softly. Hi, princess. Welcome to our club. Yours, mommy's, and mine. One day it'll be all yours. Zoe babbled something incomprehensible, and I laughed. She's already judging your decor. She has good taste, like her mother. I watched my family and the club we built, feeling deep gratitude. Are you happy? Even with the baby chaos, work, and everything else? Very happy. Club, you, Zoe, our family, everything I always wanted without knowing I wanted it. And you? No regrets about losing that game? 0 regrets. Losing to you was the best victory of my life. At that moment, Valen walked past the office door and shouted, I'm coming in. Door locked? Lola appeared beside him, laughing. You guys are never going to forget that, are you? Never, Valen confirmed with that mischievous smile, and the sign on the office door said, Knock before entering. Seriously this time. Management. I looked at Vito holding our daughter and knew the game had ended a long time ago, but the life that began when I stopped playing, that was better than any victory I could have imagined. Author's
I'm so
message.
Happy you're here. Today,
Writing Jade and
Vito's
Vito's story was a chaotic journey.
Share a few updates on what's
When
been
I started
happening
developing
lately.
these characters, I knew I wanted to create something different from the typical mafia romance. I wanted a protagonist who wasn't passive, who played the game with the same intensity as the hero.
Welcome back to my channel.
And Jade was born like that.
Few updates on
The concept of the game between them came naturally. 2 years of provocations, of you first, Lucchese, of a sensual dance where neither one gave in.
I'm so happy you're here.
But the moment that moved
Today,
me most to write was when Vito finally changes the rules.
On what's been happening lately.
That scene of the bet in the office, where he makes her lose for the first time, was cathartic. Because it wasn't about domination.
Welcome back to my channel.
It was about mutual vulnerability.
To share a few updates on
Eclipse Lounge as a metaphor was my favorite touch. They lived eclipsing their own feelings, hidden in the shadows of fear and pride.
I'm so
and when they
happy
finally
you're
came
here.
out into the light,
Today I thought we could just
pure
hang
magic.
out and I'd share a
Writing
few
the ending with
updates on
Zoe,
what's been happening lately.
seeing this family that was born from a lost game, made me cry for real. Because sometimes losing is the greatest victory of all. And if you want to watch another great story,
everyone, welcome
click
back to
on
my
the video
channel.
that appears now on your
I wanted to share
screen.
a few updates on the living room setup.